Nikki, how are you doing? I hope you're having a good Thursday. It's so bright and sunny here. So I'm even thinking, like, can you even see me? But if you're listening on the podcast, like, you can't see me anyway. Today I want to talk about a spectrum and how it can be really useful to you. Also, the information that I'm going to share is not going to be useful for every single circumstance. And I am trusting you to take what you need from this situation. However, if it's not relevant to your situation, to just park that to the side and know that that's something different. You'll see what I mean in just a second. So in March, we moved house. And honestly, it was... So I'm just going to move my makeup bag because it's going to melt in the window. Honestly, it was one of the biggest things that I had ever done. Not only in terms of logistics, in terms of financials, in terms of commitment, in terms of legal stuff, contracts, paperwork. There was a whole other side of trust and the work and the consideration that had gone into this project. And I'm calling it a project because it did at times feel like something that was sort of outside of me, and I had to kind of treat it as such, because I don't know if you've ever felt like this when you really want something or you're really willing something to happen, you almost can't let it in too close, because then there's this weird sort of energy where you're gripping and holding on and being a bit desperate. And I was actually having another conversation with a friend today who is going through a very similar process, and I was saying that the posture might be warrior 2, which is this kind of, right, I can do this, come on, let's see if we can. But if it doesn't happen, you can be still in that grounded sense in your body. But one thing that we did when we said goodbye to our other house is that we went back as a family. And I'm sure, like, I've told this story to a couple of people, and I know some people have been like, yeah, all right, Nikki, that sounds interesting. But we took the children back and we invited them to say thank you, and thank you to all the rooms. And my 2-year-old was kind of following around my 6-year-old because that's what she does. But my 6-year-old was really getting into it, like, thank you for this room, and, you know, where I slept, like, thank you, we really liked playing in here, this living room was a really lovely place where we watched telly, like, we made some nice food in the kitchen. And there were some things that he was saying, and because we used to live on a very sort of busy road, and it was sometimes noisy, even though you got used to it, of course, and there's benefits, of course, to living on a busy road. But Oscar, my 6-year-old, said, oh, I don't want to say thank you for the noisy traffic. And then he stopped and he said, but I do want to say thank you for entertaining us, because the buses for them, as they used to go past every day, my little children, like, as soon as they got big enough to be able to stand on the sofa and see what they were doing, they used to love watching those buses go by. And they became, I mean, maybe it's because I'm not from London, but I really have a sense for them that I want them to have their wits about them, as my parents would have told me, that they can get where they need to get to, where they know where they are, that they're secure, that all of those sorts of things, not do that thing that I'm sure many of us have seen where somebody's really drunk on a night bus and like, I don't know where I am. Like, I want to drill that in them already. But in that thank you process, there could have been a sense of, wow, we really stayed here much longer than we thought that we were going to do. Or there were some really tough times in here. Or there were pieces of DIY that really needed working on, that things needed to happen. There were frustrations about that house. And I really have looked at the way that I've approached this, because I feel that it can be applied to so many areas of your business or your life. And this is why I'm treading very carefully, because people might be in relationships that have ended very badly, or the situations have been very traumatic. This is not one of those. These are these places where there were niggles, where there was perhaps a bit of discomfort, where things were tricky or challenging, but I'm not kind of going into that trauma thing. So that's what I'm meaning there. But it was really interesting, because as we left that house, it's so easy to get into that thing of like, it didn't happen quick enough, or we were here longer than we were thought that we were going to do. And instead, being in that moment of going, wow, like we came here as like 25, maybe not 25-year-olds, can't do the maths, like a 29-year-old and a 30-year-old. We brought 2 children here. I wrote a book here. I built my business at this desk, looking out of this window. I learned how to make whatever, or I had 2 years of lockdown in this house. And being in that sense of what it therefore taught me. And so how this can apply to your personal brand and stuff that's going on. I know lots of people are in this conversation of things are changing. So I come on here and I hear so many conversations of the algorithm is no longer working for people, or something that has always worked is now isn't. Or I thought I would be further along than I am right now. And as soon as we all get into that niggly state, it can be really difficult to ground and stop and pause and actually have that creativity, that momentum, those thoughts, those ideas to move us forward. So this phrase of what is this teaching me right now? What is it showing me? Is really useful. So say, for example, business might be tricky at points. It may even be now. Maybe the clients or the customers or the things are not happening, may not be happening as quickly as you would like it to. I want you to, instead of being in that position, I guess, of feeling like, it's not happening quick enough, like that kind of gritted teeth anger situation, ask yourself, so therefore, what am I learning? What am I learning about the business? What am I learning about myself? And to go back to this analogy of business, is when things have been tough or my impatience is getting the better of me, I can turn that around really quickly if I let myself. So instead of being in that state of impatience or blaming people or being in that victim mentality or looking around and finding other negativity, that shift into, so what is this teaching me? I can quite often come back to, I'm actually more resilient than I thought I was, because I can recognize that perhaps I'd faced tougher times before and I'd been able to get through those. Maybe, and this comes up for me a lot, maybe I need to learn that lesson once and for all, because I don't know about you, but I can learn the same lesson again and again, because it usually comes up because it's a weakness. It's a weakness in my personality. It's a weakness in my skill set. It's maybe something that naturally doesn't come to me. And so there's more resistance there. So there's less ease and flow. And there have been definitely times in my business, in my life, whether it was bad men or bad choices or toxic friends, there's so many different ways that it could show up. Sometimes you really need to get to that end point of going, right, I am learning this lesson once and for all. I need to make a change. I need to sort things out, and I need to move in a different direction. And what happens by asking that question of what is this trying to teach me? It stops you in your tracks to take a breather, to stop and ask yourself, okay, okay, deep breath. What do I need? Instead of, I guess, there's loads of traffic out here, actually. I mean, there's not loads really in the scheme of things, but this street should be a one-way street, and it isn't. And so there's a lot of beep, 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 beep. And actually, if we all take a step back sometimes, there's a sense of like, do you want to come forward? And I'll just move to the side. And that's going to be really useful in terms of business problems, in terms of life problems sometimes, of taking a moment and actually asking yourself, what do you want? To give one more example before I go, there's certainly been times where areas in my business have not been working as I wanted to be them. Maybe I felt that one part of my business was working really well and the money was flowing and people were engaging or they were getting a lot from it. And then other areas, like I had one instance probably about 7 years ago, and acting is a big chunk of my yearly income. And I didn't have one audition for the whole year. And it just felt such a letdown by the end of the year. Like not even a flutter of anything. Like there was no opportunities, or I didn't meet the again, you can go into so many things. And going into that state of asking, so therefore what needs to happen? What do I need to change? How can I get closer? And some of the things that sometimes happen for me is that I don't have that clarity. I don't know what it is that I'm going for. So how can I get closer to what it is? How can I expect other people to second guess what it is that I want or what it is that I'm trying to achieve? So that sense of taking a breather, taking a moment, and really spending some time to figure out is so, so valuable. Even though we are all working with very small chunks of time. Today for me is a working day. I have childcare for both children all day. Happy days. I can get so much done. But the temptation can be to run home, to do the double drops, and then come and sit down and be on my laptop all day. And now I make sure for the first half an hour, whatever it is, whatever time I get back from the school run, I make myself a cup of tea and I sit down. And I take a deep breath and I ask myself what I actually need to do, where I actually need to go, where do I actually need to put my focus? Because I'm not interested in doing that busy work. I'm not interested in feeding that part of myself that always wants to come out and say hello, of you're so overwhelmed, you're so stressed, you've got so much to do, it's not happening fast. Whatever those voices are for you, and they're just a few of my favorites that like to pop up and say hello. But you might have your own set. And I want to say and share with you today and invite you to, even though you might not be curing all of these limiting beliefs, because these limiting beliefs have probably been with you for a long time, mine certainly have, to stop and just pay attention to them and ask them, what are they trying to tell you? What do you need to do to break that cycle? Is there something that you could do? Is there a dialogue that you could be having with those voices in your head, or those actions, or those familiar patterns of behavior? And one of the things that I now use, I guess I kind of as an affirmation with those things, is that you've got more than enough time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. It's all good. Things will happen in the way that they're supposed to happen. And that just really grounds me. And you could see it then. As soon as I say that word grounding, it makes me pause. It makes me stop. It makes me be in the moment. When I'm in the moment, I can think clearly. I know where I need to go next. And bizarrely, the progress of the next thing happens so much quicker. I hope you got something from today. As always, I would love to know what you gained, what was useful. I am now doing one-to-one sessions, which I'm so delighted about. I'm doing them in person. So if you do want a pick and mix session, yeah, just book a free 15-minute session with me. Let's have a conversation. Let me know what you want. Even though they're an hour or 2 hour, they're much more than that. Each session is bespoke to you. So I have no agenda. I send you pre-work in advance so you can really drill down what's going to be most useful. I then go away and I fully prepare for the session. So I'm not spending that first 15 minutes going, okay, so what's your business? Like, I want to know all of that in advance and see what's going on. And then we have our time together, and then we either have a week or 2 weeks of email support after that. So that is perfect timing for building on that momentum that you've created in your session, essentially. Because the temptation with all of these things is, and this is why I do it, because I've seen it, I've felt it from clients. I've been doing this for 10 years. So people would go away from the session and be like, yeah, I've got so many ideas. I now know what I need to do, and I'm going in this direction. And then they would wake up the next morning and it would almost be like a hangover of, oh, I don't know where to start though. Oh, wow, there's a lot to do. Oh, I need to something else. And they would fall back into those patterns or those things before. And so having me there as much or as little as you want for that 1 or 2 weeks is so, so useful, because there's somebody who is not your partner or your mum or your friend. It's somebody who is there for you and your business, your brand, saying, okay, what are you going to do next? What's the thing you want to tick off your list today? And you really start to have that momentum. It's like somebody running alongside with you. Somehow, you're not stopping or pausing and going, You're in the rhythm because we're doing it together. So if that's of interest, do let me know. The page is all up there so you can see availability. I'm going to be adding some more dates as well. That's nickyraby.com/sessions. And I can't wait to hear from you, and let me know what you want. I've just added a couple of examples recently, actually, on my website, that there could be like, you've got all the will, but you've got no way. So you haven't got that strategy. Maybe you've got an abundance of ideas and visions and like, I want to do all these things, but I can't quite do them and I'm not sure what to do first. So you might be in that situation. You might be thinking about how you want to create more money, or you want to have a different kind of income pie. That could be something we could cover. I talk about elevating your personal brand, the awake version. So going live like this, or sharing your message, or selling, or talking about what it is that you do and how you do it, or who you help. And then maybe there could be another option where you're thinking, how do I elevate my brand? And I call it the sleepy version, because I made this commitment to myself a long time ago that I didn't just want to run my business when I was awake. And that's not to say like I wanted to be awake all the time talking about things. But with 2 children who are 2 and 6, and somebody who likes that downtime, likes to be able to do things, and I don't want to be working all the time, certainly not until midnight, I'm always looking strategically at my personal brand and my business of like, how can it work? How can it make sense to people even when I'm fast asleep? So I'm not getting, and I always said that I never wanted to run a business in the way that people say, just book sales calls and like just pitch to people all day long. I'd much prefer to have conversations with people who have done a lot of that work for themselves, who are thinking about where they go next. And the way that you do that is to create that strong online presence so you can really describe what you do in detail. That's why the podcast works so well, that people can really get to know me and my work without me even being there. So I can create it, and I can create it from that place of full energy, so it's there ready for you. But I'm not always having to run across London from one meeting to the next, because you're never going to get the best version of me in that way. So have a look, nickyraby.com/sessions, and I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you very soon.